British justice now shipping globally. Last week, Britain outdid itself. A convicted child sex offender, yes, a man who attacked a 14-year-old girl and a woman, was mistakenly released from prison and then deported to Ethiopia with a £500 goodbye gift. A predator freed by mistake. A government that can't even lock the door behind evil. And taxpayers? We footed the bill for his flight and his silence. The deviant's name is Hadush Gebrselassie Kebatu. He came to the UK by small boat, supposedly seeking refuge. Instead, he brought ruin, assaulted a child, assaulted a woman, got 12 months in prison, because apparently that's all a girl's trauma is worth these days. Then bureaucracy did what bureaucracy does best. It failed. Prison image versus paperwork. HMP Chelmsford accidentally let him go. A clerical error, they said, as if, oops, wrong tab explains releasing a predator into public life. 2 days, he roamed for 2 whole days, took a train to London, walked free, until officers finally found him and dragged him back. Then, in the most British twist imaginable, they handed him 500, a payout to encourage cooperation. Translation, please don't make a scene while we deport you. The UK's new justice slogan might as well read, crime doesn't pay unless we pay you. I want to be clear, I'm glad he's gone. He doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as his victims. But this was not justice. It was damage control dressed as deportation. The system that failed twice. Let's talk about the real victims here, that young girl and that woman. Failed once by a predator, and again by the country that promised to protect them. They were told justice would be served. Instead, they woke up to headlines saying their attacker walked free by mistake. Imagine that. You survived the unimaginable, only to learn your abuser was set loose by paperwork. That's not justice. That's trauma reissued. That's the kind of negligence that makes survivors lose faith, not just in men, but in the very idea of safety. And for what? Because someone couldn't tell the difference between release and transfer to immigration? Because our government wanted to tick boxes faster than it checks names? Britain loves to preach about being tough on crime. We talk about protecting women and girls. But tell me, what protection? You let a child fiddler walk out unsupervised. You paid him to leave quietly, and you had the audacity to call that efficiency. You don't call it a clerical error when lives are at stake. That's not human error, that's systemic rot. That's an entire institution too busy saving face to save people. Because this wasn't just a fluke. This was the inevitable outcome of a crumbling justice system, run by people who'd rather issue apologies than fix procedures. Let's pause on this part. £500 to a convicted child fiddler. So he'd cooperate. This isn't satire. This actually happened. Britain has become the kind of country that hands hush money to predators because it can't bear another immigration appeal. I think a taser would have been enough incentive for him to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. And so he was deported to Ethiopia. Gone. Case closed, right? No, this isn't closure. This is exported danger. Ethiopia didn't ask for this man, didn't commit his crimes, didn't sign up to inherit Britain's negligence. Now Ethiopian authorities are left to monitor a predator because the UK couldn't manage a prison handover properly. That's not cooperation, that's carelessness with an upper-class accent. I say this with all due respect to Ethiopia. Please, keep your eyes on this man. Protect your children the way ours weren't protected. Because Britain just shipped you a monster wrapped in paperwork. And if he ever hurts another child, that tragedy won't belong to one country. It'll belong to both. His bloodline of harm will trace back to British incompetence. So who's responsible? They'll say an officer's been suspended. They'll promise an internal inquiry. But you and I know what that means. A headline, a shrug, a new scandal next week. Accountability here is a myth. We don't fix, we spin. We don't reform, we rebrand. The British justice system is now a PR agency with handcuffs. Let's talk solutions, not just shame. Here's what needs to happen immediately. 1. No prisoner due for deportation gets released without dual sign-off, prison plus immigration on the same form, same room, same time. 2. Human error doesn't fly when the error is a child fiddler walking out. Every mistaken release becomes a public case review. 3. Never again should a convicted fiddler receive any financial incentive to cooperate. Hit them with that electric attitude adjustment instead. You want to leave? Great, you go empty-handed. 4. If the UK exports a predator, it must export the full record too, so the next country isn't blindsided. 5. Support the victims first. They shouldn't be finding out through the press that their abuser just got a cash bonus and a flight. This isn't about migrants. It's about management. Because if Britain can't keep track of who it locks up, it doesn't matter where they came from, we're all at risk. This isn't a border problem, it's a competence problem, and Britain is flunking the basics. Politicians will say lessons will be learned. Of course they will, they say that every week, but lessons aren't learned, they're filed in triplicate under temporary outrage. You can't reform a system that doesn't feel shame. You can only expose it again and again until it's too embarrassed to keep lying. To the victims, you deserved better. You deserved a justice system that protected you, not one that misplaced your safety like a loose receipt. To Ethiopia, you didn't deserve to inherit this man. But now that you have, guard your children fiercely. Don't let Britain's mess become your nightmare. And to Britain, guard your prisons, guard your morals, because the only thing more dangerous than a fiddler on the loose is a government that doesn't see the difference between justice and logistics. Labour's lesson in failure. You know what the most disturbing part of this whole mess is? It didn't happen under the Tories. It happened under Labour. The party that swore it was the grown-up in the room, the reset button, the cure for chaos, and it still managed to lose a convicted fiddler like a misplaced Tesco receipt. This isn't the new dawn we were promised. This is neon incompetence with better branding, the same hypocrisy, the same bureaucracy, the same self-congratulating decay, just now with red lanyards and moral smugness. The government wants you to think they're different. That compassion and competence moved in when the old lot moved out. But this is the same British dysfunction in a recycled manifesto suit. They can change the wallpaper, but the rot behind the wall still stinks. You can tell me all you like about new leadership and grown-up politics, but if your grown-ups can't keep track of a man convicted of assaulting a 14-year-old, then what exactly are you managing, a nation or a circus? They're already spinning it, of course. They've got the press office drafting statements like scriptwriters on caffeine. Human error, procedural gap. We've launched an urgent inquiry. They love that word, urgent. It makes apathy sound productive. They'll review processes, update protocols, and reflect on lessons learned. Let me save them the reflection. You failed. You failed that child. You failed that woman. You failed every Brit who believed your PR about being the competent ones. Because competence is not just a soundbite you drop between photo ops, it's a practice, and your practice is chaos in a red tie. This is the problem with Labour right now. They think being less corrupt than the last lot is the same as being good at your job. They don't want to fix the system, they want to manage the failure. They're not revolutionaries, they're repairmen for a crumbling establishment. Patch it up, paint it over, pray no one notices the cracks. But we noticed when a predator walked out of your prison. We noticed when your Home Office handed him 500. We noticed when your ministers called it swift action instead of disaster control. We noticed because you kept telling us to trust you, and you keep proving we shouldn't. You said change, but all we got was a new shade of indifference. You said security, but your justice system's as watertight as a pasta strainer. You said competence, but you've got civil servants who can't tell release from detain. How do you lose a fiddler in your custody? This isn't a set of car keys, this is a deviant human being, a dangerous one. And what's worse, instead of owning the failure, you gaslight the public into gratitude. Oh, but look how quickly we deported him. No. You don't get points for cleaning a mess you made with both hands. You don't get a medal for locking the door after the intruder left. This is the political equivalent of burning the house down and then talking about how fast you called the fire brigade. Let's talk about the Prime Minister. You know, the beige messiah. The man who talks like every sentence has been approved by HR. The one who built his brand on being safe, steady, serious. But tell me, what's serious about a justice system that's asleep at the wheel? What's steady about a country that keeps falling through its own cracks? He sold the public managerialism as leadership, a nation run like an Excel spreadsheet, with feelings left in the drafts folder. And yet here we are, proof that you can't spreadsheet your way out of moral failure. This is what happens when you elect PowerPoint politics. Everything looks neat on paper until reality walks out the front gate, unmonitored, with 500 in his pocket and a boarding pass in his hand. Mr. Man at the top loves a soundbite, doesn't he? Change takes time, we're rebuilding trust, but you can't rebuild trust while the roof's still collapsing. You can't fix public faith by giving us slogans, you fix it by doing your damn job. This government promised to be for the people, yet when the people needed protecting, it handed a predator petty cash and a plane ticket. And where's the outrage? Where's the fire in their bellies? They've got more passion for banning plastic straws than for defending the public from their own incompetence. They'll post black squares and rainbow pins and solidarity hashtags, but when a real moral crisis shows up, suddenly everyone's awaiting further information. You can't claim the moral high ground while tripping over your own red carpet. The party that once roared for workers' rights and justice now mumbles like an intern caught lying on their CV. The same politicians who grandstand about values just let a convicted fiddler slip through their fingers like a bad plot line they'd rather skip over. It's not one mistake, it's a symptom of a government obsessed with appearing competent instead of actually being competent. They want applause for functioning at a basic level, as if not releasing fiddlers by accident isn't supposed to be the bare minimum. You wanted the job? You got it. Now do it. Protect your citizens, own your mistakes, and stop acting like not being the Tories is a political philosophy. Because right now, this isn't a government, it's a holding pattern, and every minute it stays in power, the country loses altitude. You can deport the predator, but you can't deport the blame. This one's on you. Not left, not right, just real.
Teen Think, the Political Obedience Supplement. This episode is brought to you by Teen Think, the only daily multivitamin that erases your moral compass and replaces it with your party leader's talking points. Side effects include blind loyalty, selective outrage, and compulsive retweeting of politicians who wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. Teen Think, because thinking for yourself is so 1997.